extra minute for all those that are meant to be in this group to join, and then we'll get right into it. Thank you. Okay, a very good morning to everyone and welcome to the Group 2's Breakaway session. I'm very much excited to be here today and to say thank you so much to Adopt to School for organizing this very valuable session that we've been enjoying so far this morning. So as a way to get started, I would like to start by introducing myself. So my name is Fungai Muteke, and I'm a research analyst for the Cyril Ramaphosa Foundation, and I will be your facilitator in this session today. And also just to highlight that the purpose of this session really is to have an open discussion and conversation around a very topical matter, which my colleagues from Adopt to School have already introduced. And really, we would really appreciate your insights, your reflections, knowledge, and ideas around this particular matter that we'll be discussing today. So just as a way to get started, as has already been indicated by my colleagues, the COVID-19 pandemic has really had a devastating impact on our economy, on education, and on many spheres of life. And we've seen that with the pre-existing challenges within our economy, these have all been exacerbated by the pandemic. And now we're at a point where we've had a year in, and there are some reflections and lessons to be learned. So I'd now, to get started on our discussion, the question that I'd like to pose today is on how do you think CSI needs to evolve to impactfully respond to the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic on the economy and the education sector? So guests, please feel free to, if you'd like to answer this question or comment or any inputs that you'd like to make, please feel free to raise your hand and then you can unmute yourself. And we'd really love to hear the views and perspectives from our delegates from different organizations on the reflections around how corporate social investment needs to evolve, as we have now learned quite a lot from the COVID-19 pandemic. Yes, Taboko, please go ahead.
Good morning, and thank you very much for the opportunity to participate. I think what we have learned, especially us from the IDC, is that we need to be agile. I think the concept of just working within certain focus areas, we realized that it doesn't work. I think when COVID hit us, we realized that we needed to change our strategy there and there in order to respond to the challenges that was facing us. So yeah, I think basically what we have learned is that we cannot be rigid and say, you know, we only focus on a specific area, that we need to really be agile and be able to change and in order for us to really respond to what is happening. We had to change you know, our strategy and our plans for the year. Our financial year starts the 1st of April, and we already had our plans in place, but we realized quickly that those plans will never be implemented because of what was happening. So for us, that was basically the lesson that we must be able to be agile and be able to change, but also that you need also, as CSI, the support of, your executive management as well, convince them that, why you need to change, because the plans and the budget were already approved for specific projects, but then we had to, convince them and say, what, we needed to change that. And I think from our side, we were lucky that we were able to get that support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Teboko, for those insights. And I must say, I'm very happy to hear that you were able to get buy-in from your executive management to adjust your strategies, given that this was an unprecedented pandemic and the way it ravished our economies. It's such an important point that you mentioned, that agility and being able to be flexible in changing strategies and approach is critical to ensure organizational survival and continuity. And I think also, if I read between the lines of what you're saying, as well as around being resilient and being able to find a way to survive even when all the plans that you had set in place were completely disrupted. So thank you very much for your inputs. See, Cassandra, your hand is up. Please, can you share with us what you have on your mind?
Perfect. Thank you, Fungai. And thank you, Teboko. I found what you were saying was really interesting. And just, from the foundation's perspective, hearing that feedback, I guess I have a follow-up question in the sense that you mentioned your organizations need to be agile in responding to these kinds of upsets. Last year it was COVID. We don't know what it's going to be in the future. How do you need us as an organization to be agile as well? In terms of how we approach that conversation with you, to say, these projects are on hold, let's reevaluate in a month's time, or, these are the emergency steps that we're recommending straight away. Is that a formal discussion that we have with you? How do you need us to have that engagement? And in times of such uncertainty, what difficulties do you have getting executive buy-in when we don't know how long, for example, COVID's going to last or lockdown's going to last? When it first started in March last year, and we're maybe asking you to pilot projects that are exactly that are pilots. How do you need us to respond, and what are some of your challenges with that agility that you were speaking about?
Thank you. I think from our side is, our partners, particularly our implementation partners, are people who are on the ground. They are at the cold phase. So I think they're able to identify, challenges much earlier. And if those challenges can be brought to us, to say, we know that, our plan was to do 1, 2, 3, 4, but now there's a challenge. And we think that we need to change our strategy. I think we are open to listen and and come up with and come to an agreement as to how to move forward. I think even from our side, I think things were just quiet. In the beginning, we didn't even know what to do. Schools were were closed, and there was a lot of talk about online education, but we knew, for instance, that in some of the schools, there was no internet access. So what do you do in that situation? Yes, we were planning to do training in schools. The money has been budgeted for that. It's no longer going to happen. So what are the plan Bs? So I think for us, we are saying we are open to a communication, and we really rely on our partners, our implementing partners, to come to us and identify some of those challenges and challenges and problems, and we are able to have our own discussions internally and recommend. And what I have found, especially from our leaders internally, is that there was that willingness to listen, because there was that willingness to listen, to say we are not going to be able to do 1, 2, 3, but we can do 4 and 5. In that case, then we are able to we are flexible in that manner. And I think that with what happened last year, we are more convinced that flexibility is really what we need in our strategy. We must always bear in mind that something that drastic actually can happen. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Teboko and Cassandra, for those insights, and your follow-up question, Cass, helped us to really understand the importance of early engagements with our donors when challenges arise. So next, we have a hand from, sorry, it's Maling CB. Please, can you maybe just introduce yourself, and please go ahead and comment. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Cynthia Malinga. My computer just registers that. Cynthia Malinga from Sasol Foundation. Thank you very much for the exciting time we're having as donors and the engagement that we're having. And congratulations on the achievements you have had particularly over the past year, which was a very difficult one. For me, I think the issue of COVID, what it has raised, which we have always known, but has now sort of magnified, is the fact that the basics, things like water and sanitation, still remain a big challenge that we have to face. I mean, when we are expecting learners to be washing their hands as often as we need them to, and the sanitizers, they go a certain way, but at some stage, now and again,
Hi, Cynthia, seem to have lost you there. Okay, we'll just pause on Cynthia until she's able to rejoin us. But are there any other donors here who would like to comment on what was raised by Teboko in terms of, how did you experience the pandemic, and how were your strategies affected, and how were you able to move forward given the context of the challenging year that we experienced? Yes, Thabo, I see you have your hand up. Please go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to be able to join this forum. And I echo the sentiments already expressed with some of the information which has been shared today. But maybe more specifically to your question, I think for us, the COVID year through quite a number of challenges in terms of our strategy. We had to deal with probably an extraordinary high number of requests for what I would call bread and butter issues, where people are faced with hunger, immediate hunger, homelessness. So where the challenge of having to respond to the immediate needs somewhat is overwhelming, and it begins to challenge your medium to long-term strategy. And as you would know, some of the requests and the needs are so urgent that you just can't ignore them. You have to find a way of responding to them. So the big lesson for us was maybe going forward, any strategy needs to probably have 3 or 4 pillars as opposed to 1 or 2 pillars. And maybe organizations need to consistently look at how do you balance these demands and be able to respond at different times, depending on what becomes urgent. So that was the first big lesson for us, to say we will be forced to look at segmenting how we respond. You can't just respond in one manner or in one area. You have to try and find ways of balancing that response. Then the second issue was resources highly constrained because the demands have now grown. The demands are huge, but you're still basically sitting with the same amount of resources you had. This then for us has meant we need to look at innovative ways of responding. In some instances, it might mean things like staff volunteering becomes quite a major driver on how we respond as an organization, where you can give financial resource, maybe make skills available to be able to assist, maybe look at other effective support in kind, so that you can still try and balance the present requirements. So rely on a few streams, not 1 or 2. And number 2, consistently think innovatively on how one can respond when the resources are constrained. That's been our experience in the last year.
Thank you very much, Thabo, for sharing that experience. And I do echo your views around the need for sometimes a diversified approach to meet the current demands that you're facing. And I certainly agree that having innovative ways of addressing some of these challenges will definitely help us in finding more sustainable solutions. So thank you for sharing your ideas on what some of these sustainable solutions can possibly be. So I see that Cynthia's back, and I'd like to give her the opportunity to give us her insights, and then we'll pick up the conversation from there. Cynthia, over to you.
Thank you. Mfungai, I hope I'm not going to be long and be cut again. Yeah, the other thing I was mentioning is that, yeah, the internet access we used to have is still a challenge, and we used to have it in certain zones, like the admin block only would have internet access, but now it's crucial. that we have, the whole school should be able to access this if we want to transition to blended learning or even online learning, particularly during COVID time. But what we found quite amazing, maybe amazing is not the right word, was the fact that the computer literacy of the teachers was not as we had assumed, especially the ones that were born before technology. There was some resistance and some fear of this new thing. And now you have to be teaching using Teams or using Zoom and so on. It was a bit of a challenge where we had to manage, the change that the teachers have to face. And we can't just assume that, okay, we'll give them gadgets, we'll train them, and then things will just happen. We had to make sure that they accept the change and they buy into this new technology that they have to use, and then go with them along the way to make sure that they are able to use it effectively. And the other thing, which not necessarily linked to ICT, but the part that we had to deal with a lot was the issue of psychosocial support for everyone in the school, because of the deaths that people are feeling, are experiencing today. It is your parent that has died or your relative that has died. Tomorrow is your learner's mother, father, sibling, or whoever. The next day it is the principals, whoever. So there is a lot of these emotions that are going in the schools, and we cannot just assume that everything is fine and continue as if it is normal. So we had to address quite a lot of, provide quite a lot of psychosocial support for the school communities as a way of trying to address that. But I think we are getting there, especially the fact that we all tend to work with schools in townships and so on, but there are those rural schools that are really struggling. And this is what CSI can do. I know we tend to look at our areas, circles of spheres of influence and fence line communities, but the need is really big out there. And those are the learners that usually gives us the best of the results. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Cynthia. I have a follow-up question. You touched on something that I've found quite interesting around the resistance of educators and getting buy-in. So maybe if you could share with us an example of how did your organization address this challenge and get educators up and running, because I suppose the environment was very challenging and we needed fast solutions. So what was one of the methods that you used to get them to now accept and adapt to this new way of teaching?
Thank you. Yeah, we struggled quite a lot with that one. Okay, one of the things that we did was to have to record videos on YouTube for our teachers to, and the learners to benefit on that. Every day in the evenings we'd record the lessons, and on Saturday you have even longer sessions. What we experienced was the fact that whilst teachers, when we are preparing everything, this is what we're going to do, and you plan, everyone is good, but come presentation time, then the teachers are struggling. And we had to resort to having one teacher presenting at one of our sites, say in Secunda, and had to be presenting to all the schools, including the schools that are in the Free State and so on. So slowly the teachers got used to, as they see their other colleagues presenting, and then they get a little bit comfortable. But it is not something that we had thought would happen. And teachers, they do get, and if one thing goes wrong during the presentation, then you panic and they want to go back to, wanting the chalkboard where they stand and write, and the learners are there. So it's that kind of fear. If something goes wrong, then what do I do? And it's good that in your program, you've got those IT ITEs and DSTs that are supporting the teachers so that they just focus on the content and forget about the technology. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Cynthia, for those insights. And so Thabo touched on something else earlier where he mentioned around constraints on resources. So I'd just like to find out from the other donors, have you needed to review your short, medium and long-term CSI strategy based on lessons learned in 2020? If you could maybe share with us how you might have had to review your budgets and your spend in CSI. Yes, Cassandra.
So just on this one, you know, as an organization, we've noticed that a lot of the donors, you know, especially our corporate donors, less so our donors, you know, from the development sector or the philanthropic sector, have needed to either delay CSI spending until there's more certainty, because even if a CSI budget is available, there's just so much economic uncertainty that they're just waiting to see it kind of level off. And some of the things that we've also experienced is that, you know, unfortunately, many companies have had to make retrenchments. So they're reluctant to be seen to be spending on CSI, even when it's still a percentage that they might need to spend for compliance, for certification, etc. So what I was curious about is that something that is a trend across the sector that maybe you've noticed with other organizations as well, and corporate partners that you speak to, maybe not your own organization? What are some of the trends and concerns about CSI and how it's linked to CSI spend and how it's linked to the business and to your organization and to HR practices and mood within the organization? I was wondering if anyone had any comments on that as well.
Thank you, Cass. I think as we give our participants time to ponder on your question, we do have a comment here from Banyana, who is saying that it seems there's an agreement that focus on psychosocial support became key during the pandemic. And she's interested to know from donors how best can this area of psychosocial support be strengthened, especially at school level. Yes, Thabo, please, can you share with us your insights?
No, I just wanted to, it's a brief comment really from me to say, I was wondering whether Adopted School are you guys able to partner with organizations like Careways, ICAS? You know, there are a number of organizations which provide psychosocial services as their core business. And I'm wondering whether is there an opportunity here for partnerships to say once they do it as their core business, the need is so huge in the learning environment. You know, look at opportunities of a potential partnership of sorts it's just a thought. I don't know how practical or pragmatic it could be.
Okay, thank you. And noted, Thabo. Can I ask my colleagues, Banyana or Bernice, to maybe answer that question on the possibility of partnerships with other organizations to enhance access to psychosocial support services, and maybe share also how you're working with other organizations.
Hi, Fungai, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Bernice.
Okay, thank you, and good afternoon to everyone. I'll respond to that because I'm the one that actually asked that question of how psychosocial support can be strengthened, especially at school level. And I just want to hear from the funders because that is one area that we are facilitating as part of our whole school development model. We are providing psychosocial support at schools, and especially through our pilot TARI program that we are facilitating at Botshabelo. Yes, Careways and ICAS, we can partner with them, but mainly their focus is on personnel within organizations and companies. But now the psychosocial support that I was looking at is basically on a daily basis at schools, where in terms of TARI, we have the child and youth care workers that we place at school so that they can be the referral link from the educator to the child and youth care worker for the child that is experiencing social problems. And we find that we are really struggling to get financial support for such a service. The child and youth care workers that we employ to do that work are paid stipend, and that is really such a small amount of money for their daily survival. So in terms of the strengthening of the service, that's why I wanted to ask from the donors in terms of, is that an area that they would be interested in supporting, looking that the COVID-19 has really perpetuated the problems that we're already having. I'll stop on that there, Fungai, thanks.
Okay, thanks, Bernice, for providing more context on that question. And to our donors here, what are your views on what Bernice has raised around possible financial assistance and support towards psychosocial support services in schools, as it's been highlighted even earlier from the presentation that these challenges were already in existence, but the pandemic has exacerbated the concerns around psychosocial support and the urgency around immediate intervention. So would like to hear from you if you have any suggestions or any ideas around supporting this very important part of the whole school development model.
Fungai, I'm sorry, I cannot find it, an icon where I can raise my hand. Just to say that I see Cynthia there made a comment to say that they tried to make contact with ICAS, I guess, and they found it very, very costly. Maybe if we can just hear about that.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Bernice. Cynthia, could you maybe give us more context on the comment that you've raised around ICAS?
Thank you. Yeah, we use ICAS because they are supporting us as employees, of course. But when I'm saying it is costly because as I don't know who was it with me, Maponyan speaking earlier. We have to provide this psychosocial support every day for the learners, and the psychosocial and social issues at schools are daily bread. So what we can do is to provide a psychologist, once in a while to a school. But what is needed is a more permanent arrangement, which the Department of Basic Education should be providing, but they are not able to for some reason. But it's something that we need to support. Of course, as I say, what we have is costly. One of the schools we were supporting when we were starting, we had a psychosocial support center established at the school. At a particular rate, there were psychologists and there were people that were doing psychometric tests and providing psychosocial support. So that was a center that was established at the school and lasted for about 3 years. The school had so many challenges. And I think we had about 2 deaths in the school from stepping in the school, bullying and so on. But yeah, after some time it subsided and well, it could not go on forever. So it is something that can be done, but as I say, it is a bit of a cost. And I guess consultants are expensive. You can only bring them in once in a while, but school issues are an everyday thing. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that, Cynthia. And I think what we're learning here is that, with all of these challenges that the pandemic has brought to the fore, that we still need to constantly look for ways to assist these learners, because as you've rightfully stated, that these challenges are ongoing. So is there anyone else who would maybe like to comment on this issue around psychosocial support? And I see, Banyana, you had a question that you wanted to pose to the donors. We are reaching the end of our session, so maybe we can just close with that last question, Banyana.
Thanks, Mugai. It's more of a comment when I was listening to our donors, especially on flexibility and not being rigid and being agile. And it's like they moved during COVID-19 after the lessons learned, then they had to change the strategies. So then what came into my mind is that also some businesses during COVID-19, then they had to move from their main business. So there's a mission drift. So move from their main business and to then do what is called by COVID-19. And I just want to understand from our funders that during the change of the strategy, did they experience that like mission drift, to say this was our mission, but then because of the call and the urgent need, we are shifting from the mission and we focus on this needs that is more required by the communities or by the school. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Banyana. So if maybe we could have one last response from any one of our donors on the question Banyana's raised on mission drift, and then we will start wrapping up the session. Okay, I'm told that unfortunately we've run out of time, but maybe we can raise this again, Banyana, when we go back to the main room, See if maybe anyone else has any comment on this particular question. So I'd like to thank everyone for attending our breakaway session. And thank you so much for sharing your highly valuable insights. So I will sum everything up when we go back to the main room in terms of what we discussed and some of the knowledge that you shared with us. So to return to the main room, you have to leave this breakout room and then go back to the original link that you used this morning to go back to the main room. So I think we can proceed and do that so that we can go back and attend the last few minutes of the program. Thank you, everybody.